So today we're going to cover the exciting topic of the Anima-Animus complex development. And as I said at the very beginning of our training, what the integral relationship model or integral in general means is that we bring essential differentiated parts into a functional whole. That sounds like quite a technical sentence. And one thing that's essential or essential parts are in our humanness that we, most people identify biologically with being male or female, right? And we recognize that some people are not so clearly determined, but most people identify with male or female. And then we make further differentiations because a lot of approaches to relationship leave it there, right? You're either a man or a woman. And now men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and we take it from there. But that's a little bit too simple from an integral approach. So we had one module where we differentiated between the biological sex, which we would refer to as male and female, and learned gender roles through our culture, right? As we grew up, how our environment reflected on us. And there's a lot of evidence that, a lot of our gender identity is conditioned. Then we made a further differentiation into the feminine and masculine. And again, that's largely conditioned. Maybe some essences, but largely conditioned. And today, what the Anima-Animus complex means is our split off or repressed maleness or the masculine in females and the feminine or female in males. So everything that's learned. And this idea comes from Carl Jung, who mused about or thought about that both little girls and little boys are born to a mother. And in the process then of becoming self-conscious and growing up, the little boy starts to repress or split off female or feminine aspects into his unconscious, and little girls split off the male or masculine aspects. And Carl Jung had this idea of the soul, and we will have a whole module on soulmates. And so I just give a very little description of what I see as the soul. Here is a chestnut, right? Or you can think of an acorn or any other seed for a tree. And to me, the soul is the human potential that we have after conception, right? Right after conception, when the sperm fertilizes the egg, there is your unique genetic makeup, and then we'll talk about that in another module. And now you have the potential to become fully human, and this potential I see as your soul, because since we all have a little bit a different genetic makeup, right? And the environment when we develop in our mother's womb and right afterwards has a huge impact on how our brain and a little bit our body develops, right? And that's all embedded basically in the soul. So that's the self that is not personal, right? The self that is there before a conditioned self is created. That's to me the soul. And the soul, according to Jung, and I agree with that, of course, doesn't really, it has a basic difference in male and female, right? The genetic difference, but it doesn't know about gender roles. It doesn't know about the feminine, masculine. And this Anima-Animus complex, again, splits off part of the soul when we repress the male or female aspects. So that's the basic idea behind it. And so when I wrote my first book, I got really interested in how do males and females develop differently, or do they develop differently through the stages of consciousness development? And we already talked about a lot of differences there. And as I tried to find resources for that. I asked the therapist that I was meeting, and she said, oh, I think I know about the book. Let me find it. And she found it. It's called Female Authority by Polly Young Eisendrath and Florence Wiedemann. And I'll give you the reference later. And I bought this book, and it literally, I mean, it blew my mind. And they are two Jungian Harvard-trained psychotherapists. Polly Young Eisendrath also wrote several books, other books. And what I learned in this book is that according to them, right, and I'm not a woman, so I don't have a firsthand experience, but I observed this in women, right? So you're going to be the judge if you're a female. That females, depending on how severe the split off of the male/masculine is from their soul, right? The more they develop a complex. And when they're then young women, they're either in the complex stage 1 or 2 or 3 typically. And then later there's a level 4 and a level 5. And that's what we want to explore today in females. And I don't want to go into the details right now, so you're not being sort of like, what is that called? Programmed or primed, right? To say, oh, okay, I already know where I am. So there's 5 stages of this Animus complex development in females. And, you know, the little boy, of course, is also born to a mother, and at one point finds out that he is not like mother, and he splits off certain female or feminine aspects into his unconscious, which then later is projected on the opposite sex, just as the females project their complex on males, males project their complex on females. And that has a huge impact in who we choose as a partner and what kind of relationship is then developing. Specifically when one person, let's say a couple gets together at level 3 and one or both of them advance into level 4, there is also profound changes and shifts there. So that was, you know, the big learning there. And we're gonna explore this today. I just wanna share briefly something from another book that I read at the time, which Ken Wilber often mentions as a book about female development. And that's Carol Gilligan's book, In a Different Voice. And I'm not kidding when I say that when I read this book, I literally had sleepless nights for a while, because I had never fully understood what it means to be a woman living basically in a patriarchal world. And what Carol Gilligan wrote in A Different Voice, if you want to look it up on page 20 of the introduction, men think by knowing themselves, they will understand women, while women think by knowing others, they will come to know themselves. I just want you for a moment to think about that, right? And I can relate about that from a male perspective, right? If I don't understand someone, or I try to understand someone, I become self-referential, right? I say, well, do I have a similar experience? Can I kind of feel into that? And if I have no reference in myself, you know, I can ask questions, but it's very hard to understand the other person. And what Carol Gilligan says is that women try to understand themselves by understanding others. And I sense that often, you know, where we say, well, I have this feeling, is this normal? Can I talk about this, you know, for an hour or so? And can you give me some feedback so I can figure out what's going on inside of me, right? And if this is true, I mean, this was literally shocking to me, right? And then she also quotes Virginia Woolf, which of course she lived, I think 100 years ago or so. She said, it is obvious that the values of women differ very often from the values which have been made by the other sex, right? I mean, we already talked about that, of course, we males respond to females, but from her perspective, and I think she's largely right there, right? Women differ very often from the values which have been made by the other sex. Naturally, this is so, yet it is the masculine values that prevail. And she adds, as a result, women come to question their normality of their feelings and alter their judgments in deference to the opinion of others. Wow. So life was never the same again when I realized that. And as I mentioned, the most feedback I get from men from Integral Relationships, a manual for men, my first book, is that he said, when I read your chapter about the Anima Animus complex, that really explained a lot why, how my relationships unfolded together with all the other things that we covered. So let's start with the female. If the female had very traumatic experiences with males very early on, like abuse or also absence of males, right? Or not developing a healthy relationship with male figures in her life when she grows up, she splits off a lot of male qualities or the masculine from her soul. And that when she is a young woman, then let's say around 20 or so, she lands in the Animus complex stage 1, which we call male as alien outsider. And I'll explain what that all means a little later. And if the relationship was so-so, right, but not really healthy, but daddy was there, but maybe very inconsistent, she lands into stage 2, which the Jungians call man as godfather and king. So Jung, of course, used these archetypes in his teaching. And then in stage 3, that is when there was a fairly good relationship with male role models, the father. She sees males as hero. And then in stage 4, she sees men as independent beings. And in stage 5, she sees men as equal and opposite partners. For males, of course, it's different because they were first fused and then very identified or connected with their mother. And then at one point, the little boy realizes, I'm not like mother, but I'm like father or other male role models. And he splits off female aspects in his unconscious. And if this is a little different, right? If this splitting off, this identification doesn't happen in his complex, he sees every woman as a mother substitute. So like what Freud called the Oedipus complex, right? He's a mama boy. He wants to be mothered by every woman and is usually very impotent because typically, we men don't want to have sex with our mother. And so it's also, we're not very attracted sexually to women. If a young man then lands in 1, if he lands in stage 2, he sees women as sex objects. So he has a hard time connecting with females on a deeper level than just around her body and sexuality. In stage 3, he sees woman as wife and mother, right? And there is a certain compatibility, or there is a compatibility in stage 3, because she wants a man she can marry up to and admire, and wants to have a husband who protects and provides. And then in stage 4 for males, women become challengers and inspiration. And in stage 5, they're again equal and opposite partners. So in our training, what I suggest is to move towards stage 5 and eventually be in a relationship with a stage 5 partner. So we're going to start with as they say, it wouldn't be a workshop without crayons. Maybe you have heard that. So in every workshop at one point, they bring out the crayons. And what I want you to do is to feel back as far as you can in your childhood. And remember a table where you took in your main meal of the day, where the family was present. Right? And some people, they go like, well, we never ate together, right? So you're just gonna, maybe sometimes you ate together, maybe only on Sundays. And so remember an early time. And if you had separate tables, which in some family in Russia, I learned that people told me there that the adults don't eat with the children. And so they have two separate tables, but whatever your arrangement was. And I'm a very bad drawer, so don't use my picture as the prime example. But here is my picture. So we had kind of an oval table, and you want to draw the people on the table in different sizes, different shapes, different colors, and maybe also different distance to the table. So very briefly, here is my dad, and he was like a very nice, friendly, somewhat stoic person, but we didn't know what's going on inside of him. So it's not that he had a dark soul, we just didn't know what's going on inside of him there. And we wrote him a book for his 60th birthday, which was, we put a lot of work into it. And when we gave it to my dad, he was just like flipping through. And the first thing he said was, oh, in this picture, you have the name wrong of this, of one of the people in the picture. That was his first comment. And so when I asked my mother, what's going on in that? When we gave him the book, she said, I have no idea what's going on inside of this man. Like, yeah, so that's why I drew him that way. And then here is my mother. And she was always kind of running between the kitchen and the table. So it felt like she was never really present. And then here is me, kind of little blue half under the table. And here is my sister. You can barely see her. She was kind of quiet and invisible to me, right? So it's just my perception. And here's my brother, 9 years younger. He was like a little firecracker. And I think my dad really had a much better connection with him than with me. And then, you can draw lines. What was the relationship between the people who were on the table? And if you want to do a nice painting, right, where everything is 3D and things like that, or then you can do that too. So it's just to get you to feel back into these early childhood memories around the table where you took in your main meal with your family. And then when you are finished, so that may take, let's say, about 15 minutes or so to do the drawing, then you will already be in the breakout room. And then you will explain your drawing to your partner, just as I did, maybe a little bit more detailed as I just did. And then I want you to share these questions or answer these questions to each other. How did your mother or female caregiver feel about being your mother? Right? And it's your perception of how you think your mother felt about you. That's what's important. How did your father or male caregiver feel about being your father? What were significant disappointments or trauma you endured or experienced during your childhood? How do your parents' feelings about you and your childhood experiences affect your relationships with the opposite sex if you're heterosexual? Of course, if you're gay or lesbian, then with the same sex today. What are your fantasies, desires, demands, expectations, requirements? Maybe you just pick one or two of these words that you project onto a partner or potential partner. Right? He has to be trustworthy. She has to be seductive, right? And whatever we have our list, right? What we need and want in a partner. And this is more so like on the emotional level for us to feel safe. When are you able to trust the opposite sex, right? What do you need in order to trust someone not to hurt you or not to leave you or, to meet your needs? If that's what you look for, most of us do, I do. And we will have a module on attachment styles in 3 weeks. So we're going to go deeper with that subject. And then we go into modules around the unconscious. So this is just our first module where we dig deeper into the unconscious. And then if you still have time, you can do an exercise, which can be very revealing. And maybe you have done an exercise like that before. So if you're a female, then your partner will ask you, what is a man? And you will say without filter, right, without thinking, the first word, one word that comes into your mind. And then your partner will ask again, what is a man? And you say another word. And then your partner will say, what is a man? And you can, if you ask the question, you can alter your voice a little bit and the tone and the volume to stir up different feelings. So it could be, what is a man? Penis. What is a man? Car. What is a man? Muscle. What is a man? Dangerous. What is a man? Husband. What is a man? Father. What is a man? Penis. What is a man? Right? And you just say whatever word comes to your mind. And if you're a male, your partner will ask you, what is a woman? Or what is a female? Whatever. Maybe what is a woman is better. What is a woman? Breasts. What is a woman? Mother. What is a woman? Dangerous. What is a woman? Seductive. What is a woman? Caring. What is a woman? Right? Just keep going, and the other person then says the word that comes up. And just be surprised what will come up from your unconscious, or if you like the word subconscious, from your subconscious. Right? So that's all like an optional exercise at the end that can be quite insightful if you want to do that. So there is not one book that has these stages described, like the Female Authority book for females. But here is what I puzzled together from different sources and my own experience. And so if a man does not really separate from his mother and doesn't have healthy male role models, he may, as a young person, right? And again, it's very important that we're not going through all these stages, maybe as children, but when we're young adults, we land in one of these stages. So woman as mother, he needs a mommy to take care of him. And some women go like, yeah, I know these guys, right? The mama boys, they want to be taken care of. They don't really have a job. So when I say they're impotent, I don't only mean that in a sexual sense, but also in their whole life, right? They don't know really how to assert themselves and to take care of themselves, let alone taking care of a woman, right? Being a protector and provider, they expect that from a woman. Then in stage 2, they may mainly see women as sex objects, right? As I said earlier, they define their self-identity, how successful they are with women in a seductive sense, in a Don Juan type of person. And they often have, bragging about how many women they slept with and how attractive they are and things like that. And that creates sort of like for them an identity, and they're probably, not very faithful or not material, if you will, for a long-term relationship, because there's always the next catch, the next kill, so to speak, and maybe the pickup artists fall into that category. But then some men either mature out of this stage 2, and it's always a question of how much is still included of these previous stages. And a man then may be in stage 3, where he really has this desire. And I noticed that in my own life when I met my second wife, there was really this deep desire to have children with her, which I never wanted before, and to create a life together with her. And, you know, me wanting to be the protector, the provider, the faithful husband and caring husband. And I didn't fully succeed at that, except for the faithful part. I succeeded on that part and tried to do my best. And then there is this fourth stage, which is connected often with the stage 4 in females, where when I separated from my second wife and started to date, you know, I was not able, because I, you know, had to pay child support and other reasons, to really be this protector, provider, husband person. And I could not manage to have another long-term relationship. And at one point I realized, because the women challenged me a lot, right? They said, you're, in a way, what I heard, you're not good enough, right? As a man for me. And so I learned a lot, and I was challenged a lot by women, and they encouraged me to be more independent, not to really need a woman, to find the source of love that is not woman, and also a new meaning in my life that goes beyond just being the husband, the partner, the lover, you know. And a lot of questions came up, like, who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? What should I do? What is my purpose? Where do I go? What is the meaning of relationship and love? And how can I become more whole and complete in myself? But that was really triggered or caused by women challenging me into this fourth stage. And then in the fifth stage, we, men and women, then have so like a level of wholeness, and then desire a partner with whom they can really be an equal and opposite co-creator, and to learn and to heal and to grow together, and maybe also have a shared transcendental purpose. And we will cover that in, you know, future modules. So that's like a rough outline of the different stages, and of course the growth potential. So wherever you are as a man, you have the potential to grow towards 5. Then for females, as I said, it's different. And this is from the book Female Authority. So I didn't write this up in this way. That's based on their experience and their research as therapists. So the first one is, if there was a lot of trauma or absent male role models, and where women never really, you know, split off everything male and masculine from their soul, if you will, then they see males as alien outsiders. And they're often kind of strangely attracted to males, but if there is any kind of closeness or intimacy, they're pulled back. And very often these females then work in areas which are female professions with mostly females around them, which doesn't mean the other thing around, that if they work in these positions, they have a stage 1 Animus complex, but it is a pointer. And when we look at their relationship history, they often didn't have any relationships, or not very intimate relationships with men. And you know, they hold men on the long arm. They don't really let them in, and they're maybe anxious avoidant in their attachment style. Then the next stage is man as father, God, king. And this is where women generally want to be treated so like a princess. And sometimes you can even read in dating profiles, and I want the man to spoil me, to treat me like a princess. And they do everything to make themselves princess-like, right? In the movie Bliss that we watched on Tuesday, the therapist says it's amazing what women do to sell themselves to men. They do what men buy, he says. So they may be in this stage 2 of their Animus complex in making themselves very sexy, very attractive. They're graceful, charming, obedient, fawning. So it's used that word, maybe that falls somewhat into that category as well. But it's never really totally intimate, right? It's always on the surface, just as the men that they probably attract are also in stage 2, who are, looking basically at the physical aspects and the sexual aspects, and are not really able to create deeper intimacy. Into me you see, or I allow you to see into me. And then in stage 3, there is again compatibility between the stages, just like 2, where women want a man as hero, someone they can marry up to, and that they look up to, and who is generous, financially stable, loyal, right? Has all these qualities, someone that women want to marry and have children with, maybe, if that's in the picture. And the man is sort of like her hero, and she often then talks about how great her husband is and how lucky she is to have him and how wonderful he is. And then comes this 4th stage that totally puzzles men, and that puzzled me for a long time until I better understood that. And that's what I said at the beginning, that what Carol Gilligan and Virginia Woolf wrote, and what they describe in this book, Female Authority, that women at one point, if they're in stage 3, they realize that they define their self-identity largely through the reflection from males. And they realize, I live in this patriarchal society. I kind of always try to please men in a way. There's a book, Women Who Love Too Much, right? And so like define my normality, right, through the reflection of largely males. If we look at teachers, for example, even people who teach like the feminine power work and teach females, their teachers are often males, right? So we still live in this society. Look where we are right now, right? And so they want to break free from this identifying themselves. So creating an identity through male relationships. And they say, I need to find out who I am on my own before I can even possibly be in a relationship. I need to claim my own authority, my own independence, find myself. And they often then tell their husband or partner, honey, we need to talk. I need to find out who I am. I want a divorce. I need to be by myself. And the men are puzzled, as we will see in the movie Marriage Story, and sometimes say, well, how can I help you to become more independent? They say, you don't understand. That's exactly what I don't need, right? I need to figure this out on my own. And this is very hard for men to understand and to take when that happens. And as we know, 70% in America, at least, of breakups and divorces are initiated by women. And there may be other reasons, but often that has to do with the Anima complex 4. And these women often, or sometimes, are still interested to have what I call a lovership, or a friend with benefits, or a boy toy relationship. But these relationships are then always on her terms, right? So she tells the man when she's available, what she wants to do, when he should go home. Another phenomenon here is that women in this stage often get a dog or 2 dogs. And I mean, I'm not kidding. This is often, they don't really want to be alone. They want to have that masculinity or some kind of protection, right? But since they don't want to have a man in their life living with them and needing them, right, they get a dog. And what's horrible for these women is if a man on the 3rd day say, oh, I love you, I need you, I want to be with you. And they go, no, don't need me. I don't want a needy guy, right? I don't even want somebody who loves me, like in a needy way. And so it's very hard for males who want to be in a stage 3 or in a stage 5 relationship to co-create that with women in stage 4. So that's the big takeaway for guys and sometimes also for females. And in female authority, so this is all from female authority here, in the last 7 pages, right, they point to 2 words, so like the stage 5, they haven't really fleshed it out, but they say, well, now that you claimed your authority and you're completely independent, you no longer need men or want men, right? Realize that a healthy development, psychological development, always happens in the context of self-other relationships, and you want to test, right, your authority that you claimed, your independence you claimed in a relationship, than in a more committed relationship with a man, and just see what comes up. And but then the book ends. So there's not much here, but that's what I've seen sometimes in couples, that they co-created at a level 5. And women in stage 4, they're often very afraid, when men are needy, or, that they get dragged back down in a stage 3 relationship, which is very often the case, right? Or even in a stage 2 or 1 relationship. So they're very sensitive to not to regress to earlier stages, and really need a partner who's also coming out of stage 4 and moves into stage 5. Right? So this is very important. And so here we see now how this integrates with the personality matrix. And so this is not completely correct here, because the spiritual and the sexual are state stages, right? Where we can have a temporary experience, like an awakening experience, or some kind of Kundalini awakening, or some kind of transcendental sex experience as a state, and then we fall back to our previous stage. So these two, the spiritual and the sexual development, are state stages, and the Animus complex is a stage. So that's not something you can experience typically as a state. Right? So that's going from 1 to 5 here. And again, people at any level of consciousness development, of this vertical development here, can be at any stage of Animus complex. So an egocentric or a person at a magic stage can have a relatively high level of Animus complex, or have transcended their complex, or a person at a very high level of consciousness development can still be deeply traumatized, right, about their mother-father wound, and have not been able to heal that wound. And I know actually several people who verifiably are at these high stages here in consciousness, and still are in stage 1 or 2 in their anima or animus complex. Right? And so this also concludes, in a way, our exploration of developmental lines and levels. We explored the consciousness development, and then spiritual development, sexual development, and animus complex development. So this is how now we have this basically complete. And the next 2 sessions, we're gonna explore types, which is here at the end of the personality matrix, the love languages and the Enneagram types in the next 2 sessions. And then we're gonna explore attachment styles. So that will integrate a little bit loosely with the animus, and then we're gonna work more deeply on the unconscious and trauma and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun there.